We will start, as we have been, with Minneapolis, because President Trump is threatening to use the Insurrection Act there in response to the protests over ICE operations. He made the threat in a social media post yesterday, telling politicians in Minnesota to, quote, stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE. That word is important. Of course, it parallels what the Insurrection Act is because it empowers the military to make arrests and perform searches domestically, functions that the military is generally otherwise prohibited from performing here in the United States. It was last used in 1992 during the LA riots. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz responded on social media with an appeal to the president, writing, quote, let's turn the temperature down. Stop this campaign of retribution. This is not who we are. Meanwhile, we're also learning more about the fatal shooting of Renee Good after records from emergency services were released yesterday. Calls to 911 began at 9:38 a.m. on January 7th, moments after an ICE officer fired into her car. The New York Times reports that frantic calls persisted for about an hour. When paramedics did arrive at 9:42 a.m., Good was in the driver's seat, unresponsive, with blood on her face and torso. After they removed her from the vehicle, she wasn't breathing and had an irregular pulse. The fire department's report says she had 2 apparent gunshot wounds on the right side of her chest, another on her left forearm, and a possible 4th on the left side of her head. Medics performed CPR on her in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Resuscitation efforts ended at 10:30 a.m. inside the Hennepin County Medical Center. These are really tough stories. These are really tough moments to relive. And I think it's also important, if you guys are feeling a little bit hurt, traumatized by what we've seen in some of these videos, it's not normal for people to watch other people have this level of violence put against them. It's never been normal. I want to go to the ground now in Minneapolis. MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu is still there doing the work for us. Nnamdi, I want you to give us the latest update on the ground. There was a large police presence where you are just last night. How are things on the ground right now?
Well, Ali, I think you just made a great point about part of the reason we're seeing such a visceral reaction from some of these protesters is because they've watched that video of Renee Good from several angles at this point and struggle with the assessment that the Department of Homeland Security has presented as to what happened. You know, a lot of the anger people are having are fueled by videos of encounters just like that. And like you said, there was a clash here yesterday where a lot of the anger from those protesters boiled over. But I'm going to be honest with you, there may not be a better symbol of how both sides, the federal government and these protesters, have responded to all of this than the building behind me, the Whipple building, which serves as a de facto headquarters for ICE. You know, in response to demands that ICE leaves this city, the government has doubled down. They've actually reinforced this building. They've added fencing. They've added concrete barriers, essentially trying to say they will be staying here and we'll make sure that, if anything, we're protecting our officers and keeping protesters back. But also protesters, even as they continue to find themselves in some of these tense moments with the government, they on their side are now starting to create their own fortification. There's posters lined all across where I am. They're leaving water bottles. They're leaving supplies here. Both sides really standing their ground as protests continue in opposition to ICE's presence here in the state. So that clash was one of several we've seen here over the last week. It got a little bit more volatile than some of the other generally more peaceful protests that take place at this building during the day. Law enforcement or federal law enforcement personnel, again, were using crowd control measures, tear gas, rubber pellets to try to contain the crowd here last night. Though while Small was really upset and quite aggressive with federal law enforcement, and similarly received quite an aggressive response from law enforcement as well.
Yeah, so you talk about these ratcheting up tensions, and it comes alongside the Minneapolis mayor and, of course, Governor Walz trying to tell people you have every right to be angry. There's almost not even a word Walz said for the emotion that he's feeling right now, but we need to be able to also protest peacefully. And so when the White House is coming out and saying that somehow local officials are encouraging this to get worse, that is not what those officials are actually saying, and yet you're still seeing threats of the Insurrection Act. Are people on the ground preparing for that eventuality? It would certainly almost make an already inflamed situation worse.
Certainly, and people here have been cognizant of the idea that if things get too violent, that could lead to more federal personnel on the ground here. I think it's why we've also seen a focus from organizers on creating opportunities for peaceful protests, whether it's noise demonstrations outside of ICE hotels that are effective in creating disturbances and disruptions, but are peaceful, or what we saw yesterday at a Target headquarters in downtown Minneapolis, where a group of 30 to 40 clergy members held a sit-in inside of the Target headquarters. You know, that sit-in actually resulting in a potential meeting on Monday with the head of Target, Brian Cornell. We actually were there and spoke to one of the clergy members that participated. I want to play for you what she told my producer, Dot Whalen, yesterday about why they were there, the peaceful methods they're taking, and what exactly they want to see Target do in response to the ICE surge we've seen in the city.
It is insane that we would ever say something about who needs to be peaceful when we are calling on the ones who are being violent to be peaceful. And so, yes, I absolutely agree with Governor Walz. I absolutely believe that we should all be peaceful. And I'm also super clear about who is not being it. So, yeah, we know that the President of the United States is trying to bait Minnesotans into being able to institute the Insurrection Act. But let's also know he also welcomed insurrectionists on January 6th.
So, Ali, there you have it, a position from at least one member of clergy there. The demand they're making for Target to affirm that, or at least denounce the surge of ICE personnel we've seen here and affirm that it's a Fourth Amendment workplace, meaning that they would request judicial warrants before allowing ICE or any federal personnel onto their property. Whether or not Target will meet those demands remains to be seen.
Yeah, because, of course, we have seen some of these ICE enforcement operations happening at Targets, again, just everywhere throughout these local communities. MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu live with us from Minneapolis. Keep doing great work and stay safe, of course.